Which of these Jacob Wysocki fan videos does not exist? A,
This is fucking wild.
the Jacob Wysocki effect, a dropout video essay.
So that happened. Okay. So, you know, it's cliche to be like, oh, I'm at a loss for words, but honestly, yeah, holy shit, that was crazy that happened. I want to thank all of you, not only who continue to watch these videos, but also thank you to everyone, to the tons of people from all over my life who reached out and told me that they saw me, quote unquote, saw me on Game Changer. That really meant a lot to have you guys reach out, and it was really cool to be featured on there. So I'm excited to be back rolling on YouTube again here now. What took me so long from when all that happened and when Lou Wilson video came out? Well, I wrote a book. Yeah. Good Morning Apocalypse. It's a sci-fi fantasy novel about a world where Y2K actually happens. We're going to be running a Kickstarter for it, and you're going to hear more about that later in the video. But for now, we're going to be talking about two of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I could not be happier to share that all with you. So without further ado, let's dive in. A while back on Facebook, this particular photo began to get shared around at a pretty substantial clip. It was a meeting of minds between two very different shows from very different cultures who share a very similar goal: to master the task of changing the game. The game, that is, of game shows. Okay, stretched wordplay aside, one could easily make a video essay about either of these shows, but I think looking at them side by side yields some pretty interesting results. For starters, while there is a sizable crossover of audiences of these two shows, there's a lot of people who have heard of one, but never heard of the other. And I can confidently say that those who are a fan of one, despite their vast differences, would likely be a fan of the other show. But why would that be? Well, to state my point a bit more clearly, they both want to reinvent the traditional game show, to one extent or another. Both of these shows are different sides of the same subversive coin. And from different sides of the pond, as they would say in jolly old England! You know what? I know that joke is terrible, but I'm going to leave it in anyway. And no one can stop me. When you look at the history of cinematic entertainment, one of the most successful and ingrained institutions is that of the traditional game show. Its origins go back almost as far as television itself.
Don't go away, it's time to play Truth or Consequences. Brought to you by One-A-Day Brand Multiple Vitamins. The vitamins that start in where meals leave off to prevent vitamin shortage. And now, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the star of our show, Bob Barker.
Similar to so many other kinds of professional games throughout history, it started as an expansion of things that we already had, just blown up bigger and adjusted for a spectator audience. It's the same way that we took games like baseball or football and just kind of made them bigger. Game shows evolved very much in the same way. If we were to break down the idea of what is a game show, which, spoiler, we're going to be doing a lot in this video, you see the origins of such a thing coming from the likes of trivia, playground games, and even just the silly games and arguments you'd have with a friend over drinks at a bar. While there are hundreds of game shows throughout the decades, those that have stood the test of time have done so, at least in my opinion, due to their simplicity and consistency. This is how we get entries like the really smart trivia game, guessing how expensive things are, or the world's flashiest game of Hangman. While the questions, rules lawyering, and certainly the prices on games like Price is Right change over the years, you can watch two episodes recorded over 20 years apart and still be able to follow along as if nothing's changed. There really is something to be said for if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So leave it to both of these two shows to look at that decade's worth of precedent and absolutely blow it to fucking smithereens.
Get ready for a game changer!
So before we dive into the deeper details between these two shows, we should probably establish the basics of each show. So I guess there's no better way to start things off than to say,
get ready for a game changer.
It made sense for me to start with Game Changer, as not only has my YouTube career been launched primarily by Dropout fans, but it's the show that shows its influence most clearly on its sleeves. It seems kind of quaint, or well duh, to say at this point, but the main core of Game Changer is adapted and inspired for the realms of classic game show and talk show television culture. You see this in absolutely every detail of the show, from its theme song, its color palette, its set design, the host's overall aesthetic, his choice of dress. They even got the nostalgic show look down so well that when the movie Late Night with the Devil had its trailer released, it was very quickly adopted by the community as Game Changer the horror movie.
And your host, me. I've been here the whole time.
Game Changer is, by its very premise, the antithesis of the comfortable and repeatable atmosphere of traditional game shows. As the host Sam Reich calls out in his introduction, it's the show where the premise changes every week.
And your host, me. I've been here the whole time. Welcome to Game Changer, the only game show where the game changes every show.
And at first you might think, oh, that's neat. So they have different themes of games that they try out every week? Or do you mean more it's like a rotation of games they try every week? No. The entire game format, from top to bottom, changes every fucking week.
I am your host, Sam Reich. I'm joined today by these three lovely contestants. Now, you all understand how the game works.
No.
Not a single thing.
It hasn't been explained.
That's right. Our players have no idea what game it is they're about to play. The only way to learn is by playing. The only way to win is by learning, and the only way to begin is by beginning. So without further ado, let's begin.
With a complete 7 seasons, with the exception of a few returning classics, Game Changer has not only kept to the premise of being a living, ever-changing game show, but the scale it has reached is absolutely astounding. Not only from the perspective of ridiculously absurd premises, but the number of one-off premises that they have and continue to spin off into their own full separate shows. The contestants on the show are almost all Dropout cast members and comedian guests, who we learn very quickly either truly have no idea what is going on, or they are the greatest actors you have ever seen. In the first season, the grand majority of episodes were built on the premise of players having to literally figure out what the game even is, with almost no context whatsoever. So social deduction became kind of the one consistency throughout the episodes.
Players, the truth is that I've been lying to you about this lie detector. Obviously, this technology doesn't exist per se. It is, in fact, human-powered. We've been working with a team of scientists on this for weeks now, and in order to give them credit, I'd like to introduce you to those scientists now. Scientists?
You liar! Oh my God!
What the fuck is happening? Your significant others have been in control of this lie detector the whole time.
What? I trust my partner implicitly.
And you shouldn't.
As time has gone on, they've kind of adapted this overall approach to make it so the contestants more likely than not know at least somewhat of what is going on in the episode and what they're instructed to do, rather than figuring out as the show goes on. And overall, I'd say that I think this approach is for the better. Makes it a lot easier to follow, and overall, this has become a necessity for them to take on bigger and more grand concepts for games themselves. Though, to be fair, there are a few key episodes and where the fun of the episode really is just watching the gears turn in the contestants' heads as they try to figure out what the hell is going on.
For this next question, I'm going to need the assistance of Kayla. Kayla. Players, please say hi to Kayla.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you. Yes or no?
No.
No.
Yes.
The answer's no.
You guys want to hold the crown?
Want to give it a hold? It hurts so bad. This is mine.
While there are far too many premises for me to list here, have a look at some clips from some of my favorites.
Here's your fucking Cheetos!
Here's your fucking Cheetos, bro!
Fucking Cheetos, man!
Here's your fucking Cheetos!
Yes, the literal name is Mountain Porch. That's what we're about. But because we're very busy, very busy, we shorten it to Mount Porch.
But in this sick rodeo, this bizarre, fucked up clown festival that Sam's put together, we're here celebrating what I can only describe as the sickness at the core of America.
Is that all you got?
So with that brief introduction, let's look at our second show of the day, Taskmaster.
Brace, brace!
I'm bracing.
So Taskmaster is an example of how even when the internet connects us so closely together, it is amazing how geography, or a bit of a cultural shift, can make you miss some great art if you aren't exactly looking for it. Now, to be clear, there are plenty of American Taskmaster fans. And by that, I mean Taskmaster fans in America, not necessarily fans of the failed American version of Taskmaster. We'll put a pin in that for later. What I am saying, though, is that while Taskmaster is a novelty in the United States, overseas, Taskmaster is a cultural juggernaut. So, what is Taskmaster? Well, stop me if you've heard this one before. It is a show where a charismatic and sometimes a bit sadistic feeling host guide around a group of comedians solving different weird and abstract tasks, trying to figure out what the hell is going on, trying to earn points, and the actual game that they're playing changes every week. You may be able to see now why I'm comparing these two shows next to each other. In all seriousness, here is the quick rundown. Taskmaster is a staple of British television, part game show, part British panel show, where 5 contestants, usually comedians and or actors, compete in a series of minigames called tasks that range from suspiciously simple.
Knock over as many ducks as possible.
You must all remain on the red carpet throughout the task. You have 5 minutes. Your time starts now.
Oh, I see. So we're not allowed to leave here, so...
we're now bound.
To hilariously complicated.
Say the word metronome between every tick of this metronome.
You may not touch or stop the metronome.
Also, you must blow off and tie a balloon so it's bigger than your head.
Neatly gift wrap the balloon.
And eat 3 whole poppadoms. You have 5 minutes.
They are awarded points between 1 and 5, although sometimes more and sometimes 0, as bonus points and surprise disqualifications are bound to happen.
But if I don't get it... There we go.
Incredible. It's so incredible. I'd love to see it again. You want to see it again? Yeah?
Okay, here it is again.
Oh. That's joyous.
Please don't take it away from me.
These tasks are all pre-recorded, either at the Taskmaster house or on a special location. They then bring the entire cast together for a live performance in front of a live studio audience that is recorded, where the audience, the contestants, and the Taskmaster see the pre-recorded and edited versions of the tasks for the first time. Most of the tasks are done solo, but a handful of tasks are team tasks, with 1 team of 2 and 1 team of 3. While the tasks change every episode, there are 2 slight exceptions to this rule. The first is that in the intro of every episode, they have what is called the prize task. They're often given a ridiculous premise of something to bring in from home, and then try to pitch and impress the Taskmaster with their thing. And the winner of the episode goes home with all of the things. And let me tell you, those of you guys who have not seen Taskmaster for yourselves, you are not prepared for how out of control these prize tasks get.
Are we going out on a high?
I hope so. We've asked them to bring in a photo of their most handsome relative.
Rob, what picture of a handsome relative did you bring in?
Well, I couldn't really bring any of my relatives' photos in because most of them are mugshots. So what I've brought in is someone who I think is my relative. I was a bit fatter at school. People said, you look like James Earl Jones. And I said to my mum, Mum, people say I look like James Earl Jones. And she went, oh, that's your uncle.
Well, and she just lied.
I don't know, I think she thought it was funny.
Darth Vader would have been very different voiced by you, though, Rob. You're a member of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor.
And at the end of every episode, they also have a signature live task in which they compete in some sort of ridiculous physical challenge. This usually does accomplish the same kind of wacky, out-of-control energy that the filmed tasks do, but it is different to see it in this environment and get a more raw version of the chaos that is Taskmaster. Now, Taskmaster's premise stands out on its own, but for me, the number one thing that really sets it apart, either from the world of game shows or from the world of panel shows for that matter, is the fact that it's a season-long recurring cast. The same comedians stick around for a total of 10 episodes, each week of the show having its own individual winner where they win different prizes, and then at the very end, their total points for the season are added up together where the winner receives
this golden effigy of my delicious head and become Taskmaster champion and realise in that moment that, like the trophy they hold, the victory is truly hollow.
And, well, yeah. That's Taskmaster. At midnight, January 1st of the year 2000, the world, as we knew it, shut down. Exactly 1 year later, when the clock struck midnight, something else awoke in its place. Good Morning Apocalypse is a science fiction fantasy novel that explores the world in the aftermath of a true Y2K. Even scarier for the world as we know it, the powers that be were so obsessed with trying to stop whatever this mysterious Y2K phenomenon was, they tapped into a Pandora's box of artificial intelligence far beyond what they ever imagined was actually possible. Our story follows the Caravan, a collected group of survivors from many different walks of life, as they make their way through an apocalyptic Michigan in search of hope. That hope comes in a very strange source, a mysterious radio broadcast called Good Morning Apocalypse. Hosted by a mysterious stranger known only as the Wanderer, the host shares inspiring tales and reminisces about the past, hoping those able to hear him, the Caravan included, will be inspired to fight for a better future. As excited as I am about the book as it stands now, one of the main things we're adding to it right now with this Kickstarter is the thing that I'm the most excited for: Brooke's sketchbook. Brooke is a character in Good Morning Apocalypse who happens to be an artist and sketches her way through capturing the beauty of the world. And one of the things we wanted to do with this book is be able to bring that sense of artistic creation to life inside of the book. With the help of the amazingly talented Ted Woods, we are able to create and bring to life this sketchbook, spread throughout the chapters of this book at points where they are thematically and narratively important to see the world from her perspective. Being able to see Ted so brilliantly bring them to life and have them ending up looking truly exactly the way that I pictured them is such an amazing feeling. And I think it really does bring a lot to the book and adds so much to the experience of Good Morning Apocalypse. The Kickstarter for Good Morning Apocalypse will run till November 17th at noon. If anything I've talked about in the last couple of minutes excites you at all, I encourage you to look up more information. And you even have the option to read the first full large segment of this book for free on the Kickstarter. Just check out a link located below. I'm a small independent creator. I don't have a giant following behind me. I am not guaranteed anyway to make the goal on this Kickstarter. We are not lowballing this. We need all of the help we can get to bring this to life. Regardless of what you call either show, one of the key elements they have in common is that the games are played not by traditional contestants, but by professional comedians. Contestants. To put it simply, in the UK, this is a significantly more common practice. When you look at the broad category of British non-scripted entertainment, many of their shows are presented not as a way for people to make money, but as a vehicle for comedians to entertain the audience in a unique way. Oftentimes, there is still a game per se, but the overall feel puts the focus more on being funny than it does on winning. Now, more broadly, this is more specifically referred to in Britain as a panel show. And I do want to shout out this particular YouTuber for beating me to the punch about Game Changer's similarities to British entertainment. I am very glad that the video I decided I wanted to make was still very different than what he ended up making, but I think they make a great complement to each other. So I highly recommend when you're done watching my video, check his out. It'll be linked in the description down below. America has had some success with the panel show approach, but more as a hybrid of competition and comedy as its overall set piece. You get a glimpse of this when American shows do celebrity spin-offs for charity, but also you see this in classic shows like Hollywood Squares or the retro show gem Match Game. Although most people in my generation probably are more familiar with the RuPaul version.
Shy Sheila is so shy that she's afraid to. I don't give a rat's ass because this game is boring the out of me. I don't know why they book me on these chicken games.
It's part of something I've started to call the Space Ghost effect. When so many people are obsessed with the comedic parody spin-off, they forget that there was actually an original show in the first place. I would also be remiss to not point out that there is a tie-in of some of this into the aesthetic playing out in American talk show culture. Commonly seen as a venue for funny people to do funny things, introduce you to new entertainers, and in modern day, more often incorporating skits and games into their overall programming. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. Huh. There's definitely more share in this video than I thought there was going to be. The larger difference here, though, is that even in situations like this with American game shows, there still often is a money component. In British shows, it's significantly less common. The reasons for this are both practical and cultural, and I'm speaking of this as an American, so I'm speaking in broad strokes here. But it is significantly less common compared to America to have direct cash-out prizes as winnings for British contestants. To paint with an extremely broad brush here, it is culturally seen by many as being either tacky or not a great look for whatever reason. Oftentimes, when rewards are offered, they're offered as a specific prize or some sort of experience rather than being a direct cash payout. Another extremely common reason for this is because a lot of these shows are either created or aired by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, and are subject to specific and highly enforceable rules about monetary prizes being offered as incentives either to contestants or to entice viewers to watch. The reason for this is that the BBC is a partially government-funded entity and therefore directly financed in part by taxpayer dollars. And you know what? I kind of get why they would want to set it up that way. While it's not a one-to-one comparison, think of it this way. I loved growing up watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a show many Dropout fans are thankful for, if for no other reason than it helped Brennan Mulligan live out his dreams. I loved watching that show, but if that show aired on PBS, that'd feel kind of weird, right? As for Game Changer, there are a few episodes that do have big money prizes, although most of them are, once again, tailored to be specific experiences rather than cash payouts. And as the game has gone on, sort of tasks have started to be more whittled away, and the concept of winning it big on Game Changer seems, for one reason or another, to have died down in the last few seasons.
The only opportunity to do this was really an episode where we were giving the money away. Thinking about other episodes, if we were to attach a large dollar amount to those episodes, they would suddenly become much more actually fiercely competitive in a way that I'm not comfortable with my players fighting over. This is the way in which I am not Mr. Beast.
So yes, it is a thing that Game Changer and Taskmaster have in common, but for very different reasons. So in a strange way, we end up on the same trajectory, where the more similar Taskmaster and Game Changer seem, the more they seem different. Game Changer is a strange new outlier in a space, and Taskmaster is actually walking in step with a huge chunk of its fellow shows. In the case of both Taskmaster and Game Changer, yes, there is a game, yes, there are winners and losers, and yes, there are things of value that you do win for doing well, but that is far from the focus of the game, and far from the reason that you'd imagine these contestants are on the show to compete. If anything, in Game Changer's point, a lot of this is just done because the idea of competition is something that Americans are very familiar with, and it helps draw us in, even if we really know deep down that the points don't matter. On that same note, I feel like I have to point out other examples that are very close to this concept. Shows like After Midnight with Taylor Tomlinson, which is in and of itself a spiritual successor, and in my opinion, a superior successor to the original At Midnight. And in its own way, I feel like we have to talk about Whose Line Is It Anyway? A show that, originally British I might add, used the idea of points as a comedic gimmick to give people a structure of a game point, which every single person watching the show knows that, just like Drew says, the points don't matter. Because when you ask yourself the question, what is a game show, doesn't the show being a game make it a game show? Well, if that's the case, then most panel shows are in fact game shows. And things get even more complicated when you look at the idea of reality TV shows, which becomes this branched off third category of where you quantify this. Is American Idol a game show or a reality TV show? It's both and neither, where mostly the entertainment value of the show is watching this panel of celebrities making comedic content based off of what they are seeing. There is a competition technically going on, but if we're going down this rabbit hole, you can see where the whole is American Idol a panel show, at least at the beginning, actually has some degree of merit. But does the recognizable contestants or use of professionals or celebrities what makes the difference between a panel show and a game show? Like the example that I used before, does that mean that Family Feud by itself is a game show, but Celebrity Family Feud is a panel show? Sure, maybe at this point you think I've gone off the deep end, and maybe I have. But I'd like to offer you at least one more example of what I think actually, if you think about it, may be one of the earliest examples America ever had of actually nailing, and in some cases perfecting, in my opinion, the spirit of the British panel show in the most American way they could. Let's talk about The Gong Show.
From Hollywood, almost live, it's The Gong Show.
The Gong Show was a game show parody show in 1976 in which contestants rapidly ran on and off stage to a judging panel. But the trick of the show is, well, the gong, where the contestants, if they didn't do well, one of the judges would just hit the giant gong on the wall, and that was it. Music cut, ran off stage, and the next one runs on just as quickly. Yes, there was technically winning on The Gong Show. It wasn't the kind of show you went on to win in the same way that you would for American Idol or America's Got Talent. The entertainment and humor of the show mostly lived and died based on the commentary from the panel that led the show. I also have to point out that there was actually a full-on modern reboot of the show that Will Arnett produced and really led the charge on. And it was a reboot that I can only describe as unbelievably faithful.
I have a sad story to tell you. It may hurt your feelings a bit. Last night I walked into my bathroom and stepped in a big pile of shaving cream. Be nice and clean, shave every day, and you're always cooking.
And yes, the show is hosted by Mike Myers in full prosthetic makeup without breaking character once. All I can say is it does look like he is having the time of his life.
Oh, man.
Do you know, I often wonder, where's a murderous pack of coyotes when you need them?
But it's worth pointing out the fact that not only, from what we've established, are the lines between game show and panel show so blurry to begin with, there were major people working to actively blur that line as far back as the mid-1970s. That's pretty cool. And this is the point where things come off like a bit of a contradiction, because on one hand, I get that the differences between game show and panel show are part of the premise of this video. I find the separation between the two, or the need to strictly define Taskmaster or Game Changer as specifically one or the other, it's kind of pointless to me.
It's such a... As soon as labels start to cause you pain, put them down. They should be good things for you, and if they're not, they super don't matter.
And yes, I understand that this was a conversation where he was talking about sexuality labels rather than definitions of TV show genres, but the point still stands. So now that we've established both shows, let's break them down side by side and see what we can learn about how they succeed at different things in different ways. So since they take center stage, let's start by talking about their hosts.
Everybody loves a game by any other name. A game would still as good as gracious be.
On the Game Changer side, we have Sam Reich. Sam is in a pretty interesting position when it comes to Game Changer, as he is not only the host and creator of the show, but is also the CEO of Dropout itself. This has to be mentioned, as I think that one of the most unique aspects of Sam is how he walks between the worlds of comedy and corporate. While no one likes to talk about the financial side of art, I'd argue that Dropout's success is just as much about the quality of their business acumen as it is the quality of their content. And from that, Sam Reich is living proof that the worlds of business and the worlds of comedy can find room to coexist together.
You know, I think if what you're saying is that like commercial interests will ultimately like dictate how this works if there's no regulation, like I agree with you at the same time as I would say, and I say this to whoever asks, a little too much, where my business partners are like, you also have to say that we're moral and nice.
Yeah.
That is also true. There is a commercial interest in being everyone's favorite shop around to work for. Like
absolutely. I've been singing praises.
100%. We are everyone's, we are a lot of comedy people's favorite shop around. We pay the most out of anybody they work with, in a given month. They pay more than we pay more than other professional gigs that they've done.
I had a small part in a network television show, and it was dwarfed.
Yes.
And I was at that show for a week.
Yeah. Which is to say there is a good commercial reason to be that shop. Like these days we're able to open a lot of doors.
As for his approach to hosting, Sam Reich is what I would describe as deceptively welcoming. He embodies that classic welcoming Bob Barker energy, but uses that to lure you into a false sense of security before you find yourself consumed into his comedic saw traps.
Sam says, don't flinch. Ah! Sam says, don't flinch.
Stop!
That is a point away from Missy and from Blue. Players, Sam says, don't flinch.
Oh my God! Oh my God! What is this Mr. Magoo ass fucking?
Let's see if we can get any more action. There we go.
Any minute, I know that this is gonna jump back out.
Of course not. I would never do that to you.
I hate you.
Sam says don't flinch.
Fuck you, dude. I honestly take the point.
Well, that's not fair.
You've gone too far.
It was good. That was good.
You should be reined in, but that was good. I wrote that on my prediction card.
This sort of demeanor is teased kind of on both sides. where, for the most part, Sam is doing this to his friends, to his colleagues, and to his employees. There's an extreme level of trust and familiarity that is needed to be able to pull something like this off. It really does make one think what would drive someone to make a show like this. And even the show itself is teased at the idea that maybe Sam doesn't even know.
Izzy Rowland once asked me, is this a kink? And my response to her was, I don't know.
It's this interesting paradox, right? The desire, the need for control usually comes from deep feelings of not feeling in control. I'm afraid of vulnerability.
For sure.
That sometimes you push people away. And
Push them away with rigorously difficult game shows, for instance.
Exactly.
The reality is that I'm more of a gentle dom, and I play more of an ungentle dom.
Gotcha. Putting on this facade.
Yeah.
I'm Sam. Check out my cool game show where I humiliate people.
Sure.
That's what you're coming forth with.
Yeah.
What does it look like to just walk out there and say, hey, I'm Sam?
I'm totally cured!
Yeah, right! Now, let's move on to Taskmaster. And that show's host, well, the Taskmaster. Well, the Taskmaster is really a title. His real name is Greg Davies. He's a former school teacher, turned actor, turned stand-up comedian, turned show host. He hosts the show alongside his lovely assistant.
And next to me, a man I'm proud to call my best friend. If all my other friends go down in an awful maritime disaster. I include peripheral friends, like friends of friends, even what? Perished, all gone, who's left? It's my best friend, little Alex Horne!
In the context of the show, Greg takes on some of the larger tasks on camera, like giving out the points and making final judgments in tasks where the ruling gets a little bit tricky. On the other hand, Alex Horne is the more hands-on part of the show. He takes on the majority of the traditional hosting duties of the show, makes the announcements, and overall keeps things going, and also reads out the stats involved in various tasks, even if his lengths of measurement can be a bit absurd.
In 1 minute, you ate 218 grams of watermelon. That's the equivalent of sort of 10 mice. It's about 8.5 dogs. I've measured it. Well, if I've done a system of 8.5 dogs, presuming a dog is a metre long. So 8.5 metres. We can see,
Shows the blush chart.
Roshin did make him go the reddest. Josh got him to Jasmine Shimmer. Then it's Cherry Blossom for Tim, Fantasy Rose for Frank, Puce for Ramesh, and Ballet Slipper / Sangria.
He also is often the one on set of the tasks, giving the tasks out to the contestants. This also makes him a frequent guinea pig for the contestants to rope him into the tasks themselves.
I hope you enjoy this. It might be the only time in your life you put your bare ass in a cake, but I'll let you get on with it.
All right, you ready?
Yes. Enjoy it for a bit longer.
I think I've had enough.
Now, looking at them side by side, you'll first notice radical differences in their styles. Well, actually, side by side, the first thing you're probably going to notice is Greg Davies is a fucking giant.
Another joke might be, what's the weather like up there? It's freezing. There's a massive climate change in this amount of space here. You toothless buffoon.
Standing at a whopping 6'8". Also, just a quick side note, part of the reason that the whole little Alex Horne thing is so funny is because Alex Horne is actually 6'2", which would be considered tall next to almost anybody except for his co-host, who happens to be an inch taller than fucking She-Hulk. They even actually built Alex's chair larger to make him look smaller in it. And then in the VR game for Taskmaster, they actually just shrunk Alex for real. They both carry a very similar basic persona as a charismatic madman that runs his funny little mice through his silly little mazes. The biggest difference, though, is that this sadistic behavior with Sam Reich is mostly subtext, with Sam's diabolical menace being more of something you feel bubbling underneath the surface beneath his Hollywood smile. With Greg Davies, subtext is not a word in his vocabulary. While you quickly get the vibe that everybody is on the level with it, it can be daunting just how harshly Greg roasts his contestants at every opportunity.
It's just a matter of the bonus point for Johnny.
Please.
No points.
0 to Johnny. Well done.
Seriously.
I can't see people see me being publicly weak.
I have a 17-year-old and he's never going to speak to me after this.
So be it.
And sure, the contestants joke back with him, but I mean, come on. Are you really gonna fight back that hard when fucking Treebeard reads you to filth?
You wanna give it a go?
It's a confusing little box.
It's going to be good old telly, isn't it?
I'll just open the box, you pussy. I don't know where that came from, I just got impatient.
How was that all about?
I'm sorry, I got over, I thought that was
it's all right.
in my head, I thought it was in my head.
It's all right. I've just taken charge of the box. If I've been there for 20 minutes or so, I would have understood you getting irritated, but I still wouldn't have expected you to use that sort of language. But you apologise and we'll leave it there.
Very sorry.
That's all right.
While both shows carry talented comedians in their employ, the main difference is that the majority of Game Changer contestants are frequent performers on other Dropout content. Taskmaster contestants, on the other hand, are much more likely to be renowned outside of Taskmaster, and appear only on their season unless coming back for a special event. That is not to say, obviously, that not a lot of the people on Game Changer have success or big accomplishments outside of Dropout, but compared to Taskmaster, it is more likely that Game Changer or Dropout itself is the main way that most people are being first introduced to this particular group of performers. With both shows boasting extremely large episode counts, I really mean it when I say that for all of the amazing comedians that both shows employ, there is not a dud among them. So yeah, there's a lot of familiarity you can find between these two shows. But if you start looking for their bigger differences, the first place you're gonna find that is the most obvious place. It's the fact that these shows are separated both figuratively and literally by an ocean. Well, I absolutely agree with his sentiment. I would argue you don't even need to pass the language barrier to find entertainment with vastly different perspectives and styles to broaden your horizons. Even just looking at quote-unquote foreign media as it pertains to projects created by other English-speaking countries, you find some amazing stuff. Back in my bachelor days, my roommates and I went on a little journey for about 2 or 3 months, where we went out of our way to watch a selection of shows from other non-American, but still majority English-speaking countries. And we had some pretty interesting finds. My 3 biggest highlights were Forget About It, a Canadian mafia comedy drawing heavy influence from Family Guy, Moon Boy, a hilarious, heartwarming, and surprisingly relatable show about a young kid growing up with an imaginary friend in the 90s in Ireland. And the third show was, okay, look, I'm gonna level with you. I really hate it when people do that, like, really pretentious thing where like, oh man, you gotta totally check out this show, and then they proceed to intentionally tell you nothing about it because they're just so hung up on like, no, you gotta go into it just so blind, man. Just like, just trust me, I just gotta go watch it. So allow me to be a hypocrite right now and tell you to watch the show Misfits. It is an amazingly bizarre show, and I don't want to tell you anything about it. So discussing the cultural differences between these shows is kind of an interesting nut to crack, considering that on one hand, there are significant differences between these two shows, but one can also see that either by taking influence from British comedy or from taking influence from Taskmaster itself, Game Changer might have more in common with its British counterparts than it does with its American ones. When from there you try to look at the kind of comedies that define the United Kingdom, or find some kind of comedic backbone to what Taskmaster is trying to build, and... Okay, look, I know it's such a cliche in America to say that all British comedy is just Monty Python, but I'd also have a really hard time not emphasizing the fact that there really is a lot of influence from Monty Python. You see the similarities in their comparatively larger emphasis on slapstick, sketch comedy, theatrical comedy, and just a touch of sadism. For a treat. While obviously played for laughs, the framing of the show leans into the idea of making these contestants miserable. We've already talked about the show's emphasis on sketch comedy, and even the way that the show itself is staged feels much more like a theatrical performance or an attended show than it does like a traditional movie set television series, even compared to one that would be filmed in front of a live studio audience like an American game show. And finally, the very nature of scrambling for tasks and trying to figure out what the hell is going on leans into that familiar, chaotic slapstick energy. Now, when it comes to Game Changers' comedic origins, it's impossible not to start with where they used to be: college humor and the Wild West of internet sketch comedy. Now, obviously, internet comedy is not an American-only thing, but America certainly flooded the market on it, especially in its heyday. When we look to overall branching cultural inspirations, while far from the first or the only, one cannot deny that Saturday Night Live is and continues to be the biggest face in the world of sketch comedy. And alongside that, unequivocally American. You can see a lot of Dropout's main appeal falling very closely in those footsteps. While obviously not live, you have a wide variety of comedic performers, all taking on different roles as needed to perform short-form comedic skits. In the case of College Humor, their approach to this was rather unique. While they play a variety of different kinds of sketches, 9 times out of 10, they are playing themselves. Ridiculously exaggerated and sometimes psychopathic versions of themselves.
You don't like it, Boobsy, call the police.
Boobsy?
Johnny Law ain't coming for that one.
It doesn't make you a criminal to be sexist. It just makes you a fucking douchebag.
I can't hear you. I'm gonna fuck this cantaloupe.
You keep saying you can't hear us, but wait, what?
I'm gonna fuck this melon.
No.
I'm gonna do it.
No, Grunt, please.
I'm gonna fuck this melon.
It's not illegal, but it's still horrifying.
I'm gonna fuck a melon.
Don't you fuck that melon. Rick, do not fuck that melon.
Don't.
But versions of themselves all the same. Even this far back in their history, they are grabbing on to the very seedling of creator-driven fandom content, with no idea that that particular niche of comedy was going to explode in ways they could never imagine. So culture is still the correct word to use here, but Dropout is equal parts internet as it is American. With that comes a very different approach to what was needed to stand out. With the comedy of England, from panel shows to Monty Python, they embrace a certain level of homegrown jank and the acceptance of the occasional flub in production values. I'm not saying there's not high-budget productions when it comes to comedy or drama or panel shows or game shows in Britain, but compared to America, there is so much less of an obsession on the absolute pristine perfection in comparison to England, where even as much of a classic as Doctor Who is, it legendarily has creatures on that show in the early days that looked like they were made out of cardboard with a couple of googly eyes stuck to it. College Humor, on the other hand, was a well-oiled machine that had to put out both quantity and quality, constantly one-upping themselves in a way that, frankly, is impossible to keep up with at a healthy rate. While the majority of their sketches do take place within their office space, there are clearly some projects that were way more elaborate and or expensive than others.
Everyone! Zach's recounting how he didn't get enough sleep last night. Get him!
Something's going on with this episode, you know? It feels like these characters are popping, you know? It's like if CSI were a little more charming and a little more fun. Does that make any sense? Anyway, 2 hours in, I'm like, Zach, what are you doing? You gotta be up in like 4 hours. And at that point, I'm up. Jeez, wish I could sleep at work.
It's hard to say there was never a time where internet comedy wasn't this level of bloodthirsty, but to succeed, it must really feel sometimes like College Humor versus the world. What I find fascinating looking back at all of this is that when you think about it, they've kind of changed places in this regard. While Taskmaster still does embrace some of that British slapdash aesthetic, part of their humor is how otherwise prim and proper everything else is presented. Their production values and budgets continue to balloon every season. Meanwhile, due to the cataclysmic death of College Humor, Dropout had become the scrappy, low-budget underdogs for the longest time. They started to embrace some of that humorous jank in their financial limitations, and even now, pulling off the biggest games they've ever done, it's easy to forget that Dropout is still a small fish in an ocean compared to its peers.
20 questions for $1 million. Yeah. Do I want to burn one now? It's fun for TV.
Do you think they're going to pay you $1 million?
I hope so.
The fuck?
I hope so.
Even so, Taskmaster and Game Changer give interesting glimpses into their comedic and cultural origins and how each affect them, what they used to be, what they have become, and what they will continue to turn into. So it wouldn't be much of a discussion of Game Changer or Taskmaster if we didn't discuss the tasks or the games. Starting with Game Changer, the most obvious difference is length. A particular episode is defined by its particular game. While there are countless different Game Changer games, they can be broadly broken into 3 defining categories. The mystery. This is Game Changer at its simplest, classic form. These are episodes where to some extent the contestants are figuring out what game they're playing as the game goes on, and that is core to the entertainment of the episode. Sometimes they go in completely blind, while other times they know somewhat of what is going on, but not all of what is going on. The Mastery. These are the specialty episodes, usually but not always guest episodes, where the premise of the episode is specifically curated around a particular group of contestants who are professionals at a certain thing and come on to do that thing. With a classic Game Changer twist, of course.
For more to eat its many fruits. Come, find joy in love whensoever thou art married. It shall not be but one repast. Thou shalt think, oops, all berries.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Kind of a stretch.
Finally, there's The Mimic. These are the episodes where Sam shows his love of game shows by creating his own versions of them for his amusement. I mean, technically some of them fall into that blurry line between game show and reality TV show, but that's a different video essay. While contestants may be familiar with the game that is being parodied, they're often still left in the dark as far as what exact format it will take, and what changes Sam is going to bring to the table to make their version of the show something completely and totally unique, and not just X game show with the serial numbers filed off.
Please let me win.
The approach for Taskmaster couldn't be any more different. At least to the best of my knowledge, contestants are thrown into the deep end and made to sink or swim. There are certain times where contestants luck out, like musicians who get musical challenges, but that's not really a guarantee of points.
Give me.
If you believe their expertise, they don't need to tell you twice.
I'm gonna tell you twice.
Tell that person the one.
Sing it, Johnny.
Who makes you feel good.
Spit your truth.
Tell that person
You're the one.
Yeah.
they're the one who makes you feel good.
Taskmaster tasks are quite varied, but they can still be broken down into categories to a certain extent. While you have the mainstays like the prize task and the live task, similar to Game Changer, we're going to break them down into 3 broad categories. Completion tasks. These are your standard tasks, the usual premise being that the main objective is suspiciously clear.
I really need my reading goggles.
In the lab, there is a watermelon.
Eat as much watermelon as possible.
You have 1 minute. Your time starts when you open the door to the lab.
Find all 10 ducks.
You must stay in the lab.
Fastest wins.
Eat the grape.
Eat the grape.
You must not damage the caravan or climb out the window.
Fastest wins.
Your time starts now. Where is the grape? Shut up! Shut up! Oh, there's grapes over there.
Oh yeah. You could go and eat one of them.
But how?
Be the fastest, be the closest, be the farthest, etc. In most cases, these are the closest to objectively judged tasks. artistic tasks. These refer to a wide variety of tasks in which contestants are tasked with creating or recreating works of art using often bizarre or downright infuriating tools and restrictions.
Paint the best picture of a horse. Boss riding a horse.
I've never ridden a horse before, and I am absolutely dog at painting.
The results aren't always the greatest pieces of art, but are often pure works of comedic gold.
Alex, before we carry on, can you show us which horse everyone was painting?
So the horse they were attempting to draw is called Baz. Baz is there. Yeah, it's not a bad horse, not a bad horse. Now I'm going to ask you, Greg, to judge the paintings just on gut reactions before you know who's painted which paintings. So here are the 5 paintings of horses painted whilst riding horses.
Performance tasks. This is the grab bag category where contestants are given a task to do a creative thing the best they can in a specific time limit. This often includes short films, written and performed songs, sketches, and various shenanigans of... Now when it comes to comparing scoring, the vibes of the hosts very much echo in execution. Both shows lean into the exaggerated aesthetics of their mastermind, maniacal atmosphere, mice through the maze, that whole thing. Despite the stakes for winning usually being reasonably low, both shows have contestants that get very heated. But as they say, it's not how you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And in the cases of these two shows, the approach for playing the game and getting points is extremely different. So for Game Changer, if you want to win points, the best thing you can do is just play the best game you can. Get out there, figure out the rules early, commit as hard as you possibly can, get the laughs flowing, and the better time that you have playing, realistically that is going to often reflect in how well you do at the game. And even if you don't win, the true winners of the games are the ones that go down in meme glory.
Introduced to the top of the game as a champion, what do you think that means? Icarus flying too close to the sun. But it seems Daedalus, our little master crafter over here, had some wax wings of his own, didn't he? Wanted to see his sun fall from the sky. Oh, how close to the sun he flew. Well, I'm not having it. I've solved your labyrinth, puzzle master. The Minotaurs escaped, and you're gonna get the horns, buddy.
On Taskmaster, the objective often isn't to play the best game that you can play and hope the best person wins. The objective quite often is to cheat. Now, admittedly, cheat may not be the right word, but the very game of Taskmaster is by design not for rule-abiding citizens.
Tie yourself up as securely as possible. Where'd you get off on this stuff?
I'm just doing what I'm told.
Is it sexual?
Slowest to be released by Alex wins.
You have 10 minutes.
Your time starts now.
So in practice, it is a game of looking for any possible loophole, task oversight, or sneaky way around the task.
Ha ha ha. Okay. Alex, would you sit there, please?
I'm blowing my whistle.
Okay, yeah, blow your whistle now.
Okay, I'm coming to untie you.
Yeah, I'm tied up. I'm gonna go and get a hot drink.
I'm coming.
You're coming for me, are you?
Yep.
Also, because of this approach, you end up with certain tasks where the last place takes several hours to complete, or doesn't complete the task at all, and first place is done in under 10 seconds. Once during a tiebreaker to win the episode, rather than opening the envelope to start the task, a contestant guessed the task correctly and completed it without starting the clock, winning the task with an official time of 0 seconds. Now, not to be outdone, the game developed around this. Not only did task rules start getting more intricate as was needed, but Alex and Greg would fight back by leaving their own secret cheat codes to the tasks, often hidden in plain sight, and then just watch as all of the contestants would miss them completely, at least about half of the time.
Paint the best rainbow scene.
You may not open the lab door until the task is complete.
You have 10 minutes. Your time starts now. We're on this.
Yes, please.
Oh, I can't see the colours.
It looks like a light switch there. I don't think it probably is, but it'd be silly if we not to at least try. It doesn't say I can't turn the light on. That does help. Is that against the rules?
Well, it's a lot easier like this.
It's much easier, actually, yes. This is why normally we have lights. I've made it easier for myself, certainly, but everyone will do that. Everyone will put the light on, so it's all about the quality of the rain there.
An absolutely legitimate move, right?
The light switch was there for all 5. It was lit by the square. If you watch back, it is always there, and they just said you can't leave the room.
So I hope you can see why comparing these two shows is so much fun. And also why there's a pretty decent crossover of fans of Taskmaster and Game Changer. In fact, there's a large amount of fans that wish they would take another crack at Taskmaster America with Dropout at the helm. As much as Taskmaster has found success in almost every other country it span off to, America lasted for just one poorly received season, which, I mean, look, if I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think was as bad as a lot of people like to say, but that's a video for another day. However, I very much would watch that season. But as many crossover fans as there are a lot of people who love one show that have never heard of the other, and I highly recommend you rectify that as soon as possible. Before I wrap things up, there is one other very important area in which I want to compare the different approaches of Game Changer and Taskmaster. What I'd like to do is talk about an area where both Dropout and Taskmaster succeed in extremely big and important ways, with very different approaches, but both reaching very positive outcomes. Diversity and programming. In the case as a whole, even back in the sketch comedy days, you had cast members from many different parts of the spectrum in terms of race, gender, sexual orientation, and cultural background. As the cast and the company has ballooned over the years, it's easy to see how people from all sorts of different backgrounds have come to see themselves reflected in the cast and crew of the show. Taskmaster has also had a significantly progressive track record over the years. Every season has 5 contestants. While it is obviously not a spoken rule, frequent watchers of Taskmaster will notice that without fail, in every single full cast season since its inception, there has been at minimum 1 person of color and 1 non-male contestant. And to be clear, that is the minimum. There has been several seasons where there have been women of color, or upwards of 3 women, or 3 people of color, non-binary contestants, neurodivergent contestants, disabled contestants, and many different combinations therein. Now, to be absolutely clear, diversity and inclusion are not a contest, and both shows should be commended for their strides in this regard. But just as a matter of seniority and of format, Taskmaster has had certain strides in terms of diversity that differ from Game Changer. While Game Changer covers a very wide reach in terms of orientation and background, one area where admittedly they stay pretty clumped together is age. I'm not going to sit here and double check the ages of all of the Dropout cast members, but it clearly dwarfs in comparison to something like Taskmaster, where sometimes in a particular season, the range of ages from the youngest to oldest contestants can be measured in multiple decades.
I have bought in 21 eggs. You can't go wrong with the egg.
Now, in terms of inclusion, there is a subject I want to talk about in terms of game show that I feel like both Game Changer and Taskmaster have had some degree of experience with, and likely experiences that we as the audience may never know about. That is the subject of accessibility accommodation for disabled or otherwise restricted contestants. Now, accessibility as a concept for shows like this is a consideration for all contestants, disabled or otherwise. In both shows' case, the main playing field is built to be as fair as possible from the get-go. Tasks and games are never geared around feats of pure physical strength, for instance. Both shows have in the past had to make adjustments to compensate for height when necessary, and never in either show is there a task or game that it feels like someone wins based purely on physical ability. Now, one side of this topic that is often overlooked is when accommodations need to be made for a specific contestant in order to compete fairly. And nowhere can I find a better example of someone pulling this off is with Taskmaster and their inclusion of who is personally one of my favorite contestants of all time. Let's talk about Rosie Jones. Rosie Jones has cerebral palsy, and while the condition can range wildly from person to person, and I have to be extremely clear that the only knowledge I have about how this condition specifically manifests in Rosie Jones is that information provided by Rosie Jones. I want to give a broader context of what we're talking about here. So to get things absolutely right to the best of my ability, I'm sourcing this from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. Cerebral palsy refers to a group of neurological disorders that appear in infancy or early childhood and permanently affect body movement and muscle coordination. While it is a common misconception due to cerebral palsy about 75% of the time, manifesting in partial facial paralysis or slurred or slowed speech, that the condition involves impaired intellect or mental cognition. But these impairments only appear in about 30 to 50% of those cases, and also vary wildly in how they manifest depending on which subtype of the condition that you have. While I do not have this condition, I have known several people in my life that do, so I'm going to say this again for the people that need to know this. Just because a person with cerebral palsy has some form of facial paralysis or some form of slurred or slowed speech does not mean that that person has any kind of mental impairment. Not that there's anything wrong with that regardless, but one aspect of the condition is not a marker of the other. According to Rosie herself, she has ekstaxic cerebral palsy, which to put simply, broadly means that she has a more rare form of the disease that does not suffer from involuntary movements. As for how this manifests in the show itself, if we are assuming that Taskmaster as a show is doing everything they need to do to accommodate and make sure that this show competes at an even playing field, Rosie Jones, in the context of Taskmaster, is affected in the following ways. Rosie Jones is unable to run or walk in a manner that requires skilled balancing. She requires assistance with tasks that involve either fine motor coordination or sharp objects. And while fully able to speak, her speech can be unclear at times, and is unable to speak as quickly as someone who does not have the condition.
You've got 20 seconds to cut one more wire. Grey or blue?
Ah!
You've got 10 seconds. It's going to go in 10 seconds.
Grey.
3 seconds. Here we go.
Was that wrong?
It was right, but I was a bit slow with the cutters.
So I would have done it if you had done your fucking job.
Sorry, Rosie.
Now, looking at the show in the broad strokes, of all the tasks she competed in, only on 2 or 3 occasions was accommodation required above and beyond the task's initial construction. And only in 1, debatably 2 instances, did I feel possibly that they could have done a little bit more to ensure the fairness of the competition. But accessibility is important regardless of the prizes involved. And while their approach is not perfect, Taskmaster put in the effort and made it work, where a lot of other shows would have avoided casting Rosie Jones altogether. And that would be a tragedy. Rosie is hilarious, extremely talented, and an absolute delight on this show. For anyone to look to a disabled performer, look to the accommodations needed, and to decide that it's not worth it to go through is just deplorable to me. It also must be commended the way that Greg and Alex walk the tightrope of comedy involving Rosie's disability. You can tell very clearly by Rosie's own barbs and jabs that she is not pulling any punches with either of them and expects them absolutely to do the same.
Rosie.
I'm not Rosie. I am the bubblegum fairy. Oh, right.
The bubblegum fairy?
Yeah. Played by the most beautiful woman alive.
Right. Well, I'm not going to comment on your personal beauty because I'm looking only at the character. And, personally, I found the bubblegum fairy to be quite irritating.
The jokes they make, even the ones made at Rosie's expense, help us learn more about her beyond just being defined by her disability. And while at no time do Greg or Alex punch down at her for being disabled, it should be to the surprise of no one that nobody is better at making fun of Rosie Jones' cerebral palsy than Rosie Jones.
Rosie, there's some awful heartbreaking moments for you. I've never seen the phrase, yeah, baby, so close to the phrase, oh, no.
I don't want to say that so early on in the series, but I can't say more Paul.
Oh, come on.
Oh, Winky's not having that.
So now I can proudly call myself a Rosie Jones stan. Thank you, Taskmaster. Now, Game Changer overall takes a very similar approach. The episodes are tailor-made to the comedic styles and personalities of their contestants. It would only make sense that if there was any other accommodations that were required or asked of by their contestants, that would not be a problem for them. And it also is important to remember that some disabilities or restrictions are more visible than others. And some of them are not always seen because they're none of our business. And it is up to the performers how much or how little of that they want to bring to the audience.
Making a mezcal Negroni. Has anyone seen the Stir? It was up my sleeve.
Let me tell you something. I have a bit of a tremor in my hands. And on Dirty Laundry, there's a lot of close-ups of my hands.
Yes.
Could it be the drinking? Who's to say? Anyway.
Sam says, hands on your hips. Sam says, hands on your butt. Sam says, hands on your head. Sam says, hand on your stomach. I said hand, not hands. That's points away from all three.
I had ear tubes put in when I was a child. So for you to do that is actually so
bigotry.
wrong.
This is on you, sir.
23 points.
I hope you enjoy this ridiculously winding tale of two of my biggest hyperfixations. Comedy is such a fascination to me. The way in which different people or different groups find their way to try and make us laugh. In the case of both of these shows, they look beyond the labels put in front of them, whether it be game show or panel show, and dare to try to be something bigger. In that way, it makes it difficult to define these shows. Game Changer shares just as much panel show DNA as it does game show DNA. As for Taskmaster, it's hard to argue the contestants don't care significantly more about actually winning than they do with other panel shows. That honest competitive drive shows that game show DNA is buried deep inside Taskmaster. I don't think it's fair to call either show simply by either name. But if they aren't game shows, and they aren't panel shows, what are they? That's a trivia question I hope one day to answer.